So we got Elijah joining us. We got Dan. We got Owen. Elijah, if you don't know, he's coming on as Press and Comms. That was via the Medium article. His profile will be updated onto the website. Keep in mind that website is under construction right now with the whole V2 stuff. So he will be added on there shortly, along with those Unity devs once they're done working on their stuff, their project. And also the front end dev will be updated on there as well. So we can go ahead and start. Owen, if you want to provide that intro.
Yeah, a lot of, I suppose, news to run through this week. We had the culmination of like weeks and weeks of hard work by everybody on Dogira, and that's including even our the community themselves and the community marketing teams that we had as well. The general communication that we had during it was excellent. Everybody was well informed. Any new users that jumped in were also able to get their questions answered really quickly. Whenever there's any type of airdrop happening, I'm sure many people have seen it before. There's so much opportunity for something to go wrong. I mean, it's nearly the opportunity is there for things to go right. And if you don't take that opportunity, you could assume the default way it will go will be wrong. But yeah, thanks to everybody who was available on that day for me to help out with anything, particularly a developer. I'm going to give thanks just in a couple of moments, who was able to jump on and pretty much do overnight extensive testing with myself on the contract as well. Yeah, everything went fantastically on it. We've gotten our liquidity onto 4 different DEXs now. And I'm also going to be speaking about those in particular, as right now I think everybody's looking at liquidity on QuickSwap, which is not our total liquidity. I have the full numbers here, which I'll be able to provide links onto as well. And we'll be able to answer any questions on that then. So important news then is that the token mapping is underway to get us bridged over onto Ethereum. Now, we've been advised by Polygon that it can take up to 1 week for it to be completed. Hopefully it'll be done a little bit quicker than that, but once we are mapped over onto Ethereum, we'll also be adding our liquidity on the Ethereum side as well. Now, as we said a couple of times, everything we're building right now, everything we're planning for is all on Polygon. So if you want to get in on farms, if you want to get in on any of the gaming services that we're building, or really anything outside of just plain and simple holding the token, you want to be on Polygon. But if for any reason, you know, anybody was more interested in just holding on Ethereum or just wants to pick it up nice and quick off Uniswap, or what have you, it will be back on there for it. But we do recommend, where possible, keep the token on Polygon, particularly when you're looking at extremely low gas fees, the incredible speeds on the network as well, which I think nearly everybody in the community has pointed out now. So it's really been fantastic to get that moved over and see everybody be able to, I suppose, use crypto in the form that it's kind of intended for at the moment, rather than being afraid to buy or sell anything because the gas will cost you $200, or getting into liquidity, I think, was costing about $600 at one point 2 or 3 weeks ago. So brilliant to be back on a network that we can actually scale up on and allow people to buy, I suppose, you know, small amounts of Dogira. Like, you don't need to buy, you know, 3 and 4 grand worth of Dogira just to offset the transaction costs you're paying on top of it. So yeah, brilliant to be on a network again that we can start really using for everything that crypto is kind of intended for nowadays, rather than just hold and pray and make sure that you don't get done on gas fees when you're trying to get back out the door. So beyond that then, our Paladin audit has been asked of us a couple of times. We are working to get that done on a rush order at the moment. So the party that we were working with on the token development, there were a couple of issues on it that were pointed out both in the audit, and then a couple more issues that were found by myself when I sat down to do a full review over it. We decided that it was in the best interest of the community and the token's long-term future to simply rewrite the contract and make sure that it was much more scalable and, I suppose, much more secure from a trader point of view and much more efficient from a gas point of view. I know we're on Polygon, but it's something that you want to have your T's crossed and I's dotted when it comes to a token contract. We found that important to jump into. So after the rewrite was completed of that by myself, the developer of the token SNAP jumped in and joined me for extensive testing on that contract. We'd also like to thank Paladin for being able to jump in and be able to re-audit it so quickly after the previous one was sent through. So the news from that one to take really going forward, I guess, is that with us having parted ways with the partner that we're working with to develop on those contracts, the farming contracts, etc., will be fully developed on by myself. I think it's important that we make sure that that is done perfect from the offset. Like, it's okay with the token contract. We left in a little bit of buffer time to make sure that In a worst case scenario, we're able to jump in and make sure everything is up to the standard that we expect. When it comes to the farming side of it, that is obviously a much bigger, a much more complicated system, and particularly one that we need to put security as an absolute top priority on. So that will be handled by myself moving forward. So my main priority right now will be on the farming side. And following that, then I'll be jumping back over onto games development to get us those projects that we're looking forward to. So on the farming side, we do actually have two incentivized liquidity farms being launched. They're being launched with two of the collaborators that we've been working with recently. One of them, which has now come on as a full partner, that's Polycat. So we're going to make sure that you're able to basically get your Dogira into a MATIC pair or what have you, anything you want to do either to de-risk your position or to, I suppose, stake in long-term on it and be able to, I suppose, reap the rewards from that. The farm itself that we're developing on our end will be geared all towards providing additional value for Dogira and the new tokens that we launch. But right now we've got two of our collaborators jumping in, setting up incentivized liquidity farms for us to allow us, I suppose, to add more stability to the price of Dogira, add a lot more confidence to it, and make sure that the people who are providing that liquidity can be aptly rewarded with more than just the AMM fees that they would take from that. So next up is our website revamp. So you've likely already seen that the website was given a very quick makeover in lieu of V2 being launched. Now, it is not going to stay in the current condition that it's in. We are going to be adding a lot more on there. We're obviously going to have our farm on there as well. But right now, we just needed to get a quick swap over just to highlight the new DEXs that we're operating through. And I suppose give the information, the vague upfront information on what Dogira is about after the kind of transformations we went through over the last couple of weeks and months. And additionally, to get in details on the actual contract and the contract ID itself. So all the small things covered off on it, but we'll be doing a full revamp on that one, which will bring us more in line with the vision that we have for V2 of Dogira. So we're also aware that there are some issues with the CEXs at the moment. We're hoping that we'll get a resolution on that soon, but it will likely be, well, we're coming up on it now, but likely going to be Monday. As well, this is the thing with centralized services, you get a Monday to Friday support side, which is why quite bluntly that I am a massive fan of decentralized services. And following on from that, we want to take a look at the liquidity and volume numbers for real. On QuickSwap right now, I think that's what's being reported on Dexs, and that is coming in at, I think there's about $158,000 in liquidity, which is still, it's still very healthy for a token to have. But that is not all of our liquidity. You might note that whenever a buy or a sell goes in on Dexs, you will then see a couple of arbitrage bots jumping in on top of it. This is because we're on 4 different DEXs at the moment, and QuickSwap actually received a much smaller portion of the liquidity than, say, 2 of the collaborators that we wanted to kind of develop a closer relationship with. So one of them obviously is Polycat. Polycat at the moment have about $239,000 in total liquidity, and over the last 24 hours they've had around about $20,000 in volume run through it. Prior to that then, on our launch date on the 18th, they actually took in $95,000 of volume in that time, which is fantastic for what's essentially a day one launch on a brand new network. Following that then, we have Apeswap, who have got a total liquidity of $295,000. The volume over the last 24 hours is about $40,000. And I'll just bring up the volume from yesterday. So yeah, and at launch, we had $121,000 run through it on the 18th, which again is fantastic. On what Sushi have got for us at the moment, I believe there's about $50,000 on there. There's about 44,000 MATIC on there. So taken with the Dogira side, then you're looking at around about $100,000 in liquidity. So yeah, liquidity is very healthy across all of the DEXs that we have up and running at the moment. And that's why you see on QuickSwap, which has 158,000 worth of liquidity, which is essentially it's less than a quarter of the liquidity on there. It's why when you see a purchase or a sell going through on Dexs through Quick, you immediately start seeing arbitrage bots coming in on top of it. So you can see we had a couple of wicks that kind of went far up or far down. So one of the biggest things about the liquidity incentives that we're doing at the moment is when people start providing liquidity directly on, say, Apeswap or Polycat or anything like that, you'll be able to make far bigger purchases and sells without having, a massive wick coming on the end of it and waiting for arbitrage to catch up, stuff like that. And of course, we hope that that will be used for buying, but it's obviously stability in both directions on it, which is, that's what we want to see on it. Like, there's very little there's very little joy to be taken in having to sell for, say, a 1% price change for every couple of dollars, stuff like that. So getting instability through that through liquidity farming and liquidity incentives is one of our top priorities, which again we're working on with two of our collaborators, and we'll have more information on that hopefully within the next couple of days. And that is the major news updates. All right, we can jump over to the questions then.
Yeah, before we do go into the questions, since McDougall, Elijah, this is your first name. May I go ahead and introduce yourself, brief introduction, and then we'll go ahead and jump on to them.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Elijah, or MacDougall here on Discord. I am a copywriter and marketing professional with about 5.5 years of experience in the broader communications industry. Got into crypto back in March-ish when I found Dogira and started doing a lot of research and digging into the industry, and just wanted to lend a hand, and here we are. I've been slowly making the transition over to working more in a full-time capacity within the crypto industry, and Dogira was one of the first companies to give me a shot. So I'm very thankful for all of you guys for enabling me to kind of step into something that I'm excited to do every single day. And I'm excited to be here for the Dogira community, of course.
Yeah, man, and we're excited to have you here. We're glad to have you part of the team.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And McDougall / Elijah, if we want to go with the official first name basis on it. Elijah has been great in helping us out in doing copy checks over any of the releases that we've done so far. He's been an active member of the community pretty much since day zero. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to have you on board, man. And yeah, welcome from myself and the entire community.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
So let's see the first question here. Question is, if any, what challenges does Dogira have that might put a couple of roadblocks into the project? You guys might not have any, but worth asking. Roadblocks. Well, the market is a big one. I mean, more kind of, because with the project, we're still going to be developing on it, even if the bear market happened. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily a roadblock for grabbing new people to join our community, yes.
Yeah, and like this is something I said before we had the correction back in the summertime, that for a developer, bear seasons are kind of good things. We get to sit down and focus on the actual development, stuff like that. There's a lot less pressure when we're in the middle of a bear season, because there's not so much of, get it done now. When there's, a bull run on, when everything is going up in value quickly, people tend to get very frustrated if, they're holding a token for 3 or 4 days, God forbid, and you've not 2x or 3x in price. And it just lends to a more kind of toxic atmosphere when things are just kind of shooting up all around them, and you don't want to rush your development at the same time. So that this is, again, an extremely developer point of view to have, and I don't expect my team to share it with me, but bear seasons for me are pretty comfortable in being able to sit down and get to work. So for myself, yes, I can understand that bringing new holders in may be difficult, and it might be, quiet and chat if a bear season did arrive. Being honest, on my side, it all just simply comes down to, it's just development time, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, on my end, I wouldn't look at that as being, a massive roadblock. One that I would kind of look at right now is that Solidity developers are extremely hard to find. And when you do find them, it can be difficult to, I suppose, judge straight out the level of experience that they have with it. And additionally, if they were kind of, how to put it, like classically trained in development or in software engineering or in computer science, or if it's just like, they picked up a bit of Solidity. Like a lot of scripts that you see out there at the moment are a lot of copy paste mishmash and stuff like that. There's I think one of the most forked projects right now is SafeMoon, and then it was discovered that there's several issues with the SafeMoon contract, and there's been so many projects launched off it just from the success of SafeMoon. So it can be a little bit difficult to sit down and look at somebody as a Solidity developer and see, where do the talents kind of come from that extend outwards of being able to copy and paste elements into a contract, as that's pretty much how everybody learns how to do their first bit of token development. So yeah, I think that's kind of really an industry-wide problem, isn't it? Just in general, when it comes to software engineers and developers, I would love to have more coming on board with us, but we have gotten a ton of different applications coming in, both on a contractor side and for, people that want to just join Dogira full time. But it's been difficult to kind of narrow it down to a level where you want to bring on an engineer who is obviously able to, take on and complete a pretty steady amount of work throughput every single week. When we look at somebody that we need to train up at the same time, that then makes it a little bit more difficult in, how much time do we lose on training them versus how much output do we get from them. And there's always a possibility when it comes to crypto that they may lose interest or simply decide that, they want to build their own token, stuff like that. So a lot of Solidity developers right now are running their own tokens because there's kind of, like, everybody's saying it's still a bit bearish right now. And I would massively disagree because I'm seeing new tokens get launched every other day, hundreds of them. So yeah, like, we have that kind of mix going on at the moment. So it would be brilliant to have, I suppose, more development hands jumping on board. But right now, it's, I suppose, just very difficult to be able to whittle through the amounts that we get and find people who would kind of suit Dogira and be a good addition to the team and make sure that we're not kind of adding numbers for the sake of adding numbers and actually reducing the amount of work we can get done. But I would say right now, that is a problem being faced by nearly every project, being quite blunt about it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see them in Telegram chat. They'll send a big old message that looks really nice. They're like, "Oh, I can do everything under the sun," and then they link their GitHub or give a GitHub username. And then I ask them, "Hey, man, yeah, okay, could you tell us what project you worked on? Could you send me some contracts? Could you send me X, Y, Z?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." And then they don't get back to me.
Yeah,
That happens a lot.
yeah. There's the one that both of us were in for, and they had just forked the Open Zeppelin ERC20 standard, and then left when we asked them a question. That was it. Or what was it? They said they couldn't remember the name of the projects they worked on. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I was like, "Yeah, you could just send out my email." And they're like, "Or could I message you?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, message me." Nothing. They just whatever.
Yeah, so it's one of the difficult parts in crypto in general right now, because people will, as people tend to do in, I suppose, any interview, they will try to sell you the sun, the moon, the stars. But I mean, time in crypto is, one day in crypto is like 3 years in the real world. So yeah, it can be very difficult to, I suppose, schedule out our time well enough to be able to actually interview people well enough to see what's happening on there, and then kind of see, how many hours we spent on this so far, and what have we lost from the development side of it. So yeah, it's time. We could always do it way more time, and we could always do it more developers. And that's kind of, again, the reality for every project on the market.
Let's see this next one here. When are we seeing the marketing in play? Have you talked to many YouTubers? Are we to expect videos being released sometime this week? Well, I mean, there was this video that I went ahead and posted up in the Discord if you want to take a peek at it. When is marketing in play? I cannot tell you that. As I've said, and I noticed that you're, I believe, a rather new member to the community. We're rather secretive when it comes to marketing. I don't want people to buy the rumor, sell the news, but I can assure you that it is in play all the time. And other than
Yeah.
that, with YouTubers and just influencers in general, you have to be very specific on which ones you get. Not only because a lot of them are just absolutely botted, but there are people that will try to upsell you and say, let's say they make a YouTube video on a project just because, they bought bags in it. And now they want you to either give them coin or give them money when normally they would just do it for free if they bought bags in it. So it's like, and again, it depends on the crowd too. So we're picky with that stuff.
Yeah, and this is kind of the thing with it. I think I've said this a few times, and I try to prevent myself from saying it when it comes up again. But we have a lot of people jumping in and saying, "Oh, yeah, I can promote your project. Just give me 5 Ether." And a lot of us kind of like, if you have this type of following where you promoting a project will make any tangible difference to the project at all, why haven't you simply invested in the project and then promoted the project? I mean, it's a very simple kind of economical question, and a lot of the time we get like, "Oh yeah, well, we can't we can't ethically invest in something that we're about to advertise." And I was like, it's not really an ethical problem. It's like, even when it comes into cryptocurrency, it's one of the few places that you can do that. And then you can simply take a look at any other video that they released and have a look at any changes in volume for the tokens that they were talking about. and 99% of the time there is never a difference at all. Secondly, I'm very, as Skylar said, particular about who actually speaks about the project as well. I mean, it's brilliant when somebody organically picks up on the project and they want to speak about it themselves, and that's be it good feedback or bad feedback. If they're organically finding the project, it's always a good thing regardless. But when it comes to, say, somebody who wants to work directly with us, I really don't want somebody again selling the sun, the moon, and the stars without actually having done any research into the project themselves. A lot of the time, it's what you'd kind of call moon boy marketing. And I think that there was a short period where that did work in the market when everything was going crazy and people were just throwing money at whatever turned up. But I think, and this is a comment I said a little earlier today, that the people who were investing in projects just based off hearing a name and hearing about an influencer just talking about it, these are the people who have unfortunately already been parted with their money. It's the market was pretty vicious to them at the top. A lot of those kind of tokens vanished entirely. Some of them were rugged. Some of them were, I suppose, as you call it, soft rugged, as is the case with, say, Bonfire only earlier this week, stuff like that. And I think that people have been burnt so badly by influencer level marketing where it's simply somebody with a lot of followers shouting a crypto name at you that I don't think it's going to happen again. I hope it doesn't happen again, but I think that a lot of people would have learned how badly they can get burned by just some blue tick shouting at them to purchase whatever funny name coin they find. And that's not saying that, community coins and meme coins will be gone. Though, of course, I think they're still going to be around. We saw SHIB go on a massive run during the week. But I think when it comes to, a coin being launched, some influencer just shouting the name, and then suddenly they have 100 million market cap, stuff like that, I think and hope that those days are a little bit more behind us now. But again, I'm sure I will live to rue the day I said those words. Hopefully we're a little bit past it. But as far as Dogira goes, we have no interest in engaging in that type of stuff anyway.
Yep. We want to get that product out. Want to get them something with substance.
Yeah.
You see here.
Yeah, build the hype around the stuff that we actually build and deliver, not, shout this name and hopefully it'll go up in price.
When is the Munch plugin coming? Can we just make a plugin by yourself or hire someone or even implement PayPal, Venmo to do it where you receive your Dogira on a Polygon wallet? Would be pretty cool. So Munch plugin, that is entirely on their side. We have some estimated dates, but we can't share them at this moment.
When it comes to like implementing PayPal from a technical level, it's super easy. We can have it done in like 15 minutes. From a legal level, I would expect to be in front of a judge and have my PayPal account gone within 8-9 minutes at maximum. So yeah, a lot of this just comes down to how crypto is currently regulated. So technical implementation of that, very simple when it comes to something like PayPal. Now, when it comes to something like credit card implementation, like more direct, it's still very simple from a technical level. But then you have to look into things like PCI DSS compliance, and there's a whole industry around solely being compliant for that. So that is something that's a whole new kettle of fish. I was in charge of it for one project before, and it's something I never want to relive. It's a couple of months of going through it, and even at that stage, you still had to hire in external partners to double check everything on it. So it would be fantastic if we could just go straight on with that one. But yeah, we're hoping that Munch are, going to do well on their side of the project and we can get that up and running, as soon as is feasibly possible. But yeah, more kind of direct on-ramps would be brilliant. I do agree on that.
Is that an Irish saying, kettle of fish?
Is that not an American thing either?
I mean, if we had a kettle of burgers, that might make sense. No, but we don't have any kettles. A pot of beans. I don't know, but a kettle of fish.
That one threw me for a loop.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to think like, how can you explain a kettle of fish? It's like
fish in a kettle.
Yeah, I don't actually know what the metaphor is kind of meant to directly say, but in short, it just means that it's a nightmare. And I suppose a kettle of fish would be pretty nightmarish. So
I would agree. I think. Okay, let's see. Does the partnership with Chainlink Labs go beyond VRF integration? Owen, if you'd like to speak on that.
Yeah, so obviously we had the tweet out from themselves, and that got people, I suppose, talking on if there's more of a marketing connection and stuff like that. So right now we're mostly looking for it's plain and simple to get the actual technology side of it. That's our interest on it. We have open dialogue with Chainlink Labs, and they've been extremely helpful to us so far. But we can't say like straight out that just to kind of dispel any rumor that went around. Like, no, there is not a marketing agreement in there or anything like that. Like, they're not going to be tweeting us every other week. Chainlink Labs do speak about the partners that do come on board with them. They speak about the type of things that they develop in general. And we do have an open dialogue with Chainlink Labs as far as, I suppose, the project in general goes and what we're developing on it is, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I would say that yes, it does go beyond VRF integration, but it's more of a kind of open collaboration in basically being able to get the absolute best use that we can out of the technologies that Chainlink is putting forward, and just working with them on I suppose, a little bit more of kind of a general level and being able to speak about just general project goals, stuff like that. But they've been fantastic since the day that we reached out to them. Or rather, they reached out to us, which is always a very good selling point. But yeah, a lot of it right now is kind of a little bit more generalized, and the stuff like when you look beyond VRF integration, we look at stuff like oracles, like outside of just say when you're going through like the price ticker stuff and things like that, like Chainlink have really been leading the way in a lot of areas when it comes to kind of off-chain merging with on-chain and stuff like that. So I'm certain that as time goes on, we'll be seeing a lot of cool new Chainlink technologies come out that will hopefully be of use to Dogira and other projects as well.
Is the game going to be something small, like a browser game? Can you get... I'm going to butcher this name, and you guys are going to hate me for it. Owen, can you please say that name?
Hideo Kojima.
There you go. Not past contacting him to see if he can write a plot, but I don't know how long that might take us to implement and if he'll even respond. But if you have a connection, let me know.
I played some Kojima games. I can pretend that I can write as well as he can.
Yeah, there's I'll certainly send a letter to him and let you know as soon as he jumps at the opportunity to drop his current projects and come work for Dogira. But on the game being something small like a browser game, stuff like that. So like we're going to be developing on several different projects, and I think I was speaking about this during the Polycat AMA that there'll be, partner studios that we want to bring on and have more of an advisory role in, and then there's their own kind of internal developments as well. So the stuff that I am kind of geared towards right now, a lot of it is kind of based around, like, I always find that browser-based gaming is a fantastic way to be able to, I suppose, get people to actually find and play the game with ease. There's nothing to download or anything like that. It's just going to run straight in the browser. It's always going to be virtualized. You don't have to sit and be in fear of opening, and a lot of people will not open an executable that has anything to do with crypto, just for obvious reasons that you could have a keylogger in there, or it could simply try and swipe your private keys, etc., etc. But when you're playing it in the browser and you have that nice kind of layer of security between yourself and your MetaMask wallet, I think that is a very big upsell for a lot of people who want to get into kind of play to earn games and stuff like that. And I've spoken about this before and how the technology has moved along in general browser gaming, and it's something that we don't really see much of anymore since, the death of Flash. But it's come along quite a long way. I mean, WebGL is actually pretty good nowadays, especially now that we have WebAssembly to compile through. There's still a decent ways to go. You're not going to be getting AAA or really even AA graphics or anything like that. But the reality is we're not a AAA or a AA studio. We're not going to be, like, unless we just, cranked up all of the post-processing settings, we're not going to have much use for the level of grunt that we get from actually having an executable running off your machine. That, and there's a couple of nice things that we can take from being in the browser as well. There's a lot of really good plugins already built that will allow us to, say, interact with MetaMask and things like that. And on top of that, then, I mean, it's just very simple to be able to port onto a browser, and it doesn't matter what platform you're playing on. Well, most of the time at least, but we can assume that we're going to be very platform agnostic, maybe not 100%, but it'll be very easy to get something out and get it into the hands of people who are interested in it. And of course, we can assume, as you kind of need to with any blockchain connected game anyway, but we can assume that whoever's playing it has an internet connection, which is always helpful to know. So yeah, I would say that the first couple of things, at least coming from our internal kind of works on it, will be based around the browser. But it's not set in stone either. If I find, or if any of us find a good reason to move it onto, say, mobile or onto desktop executable and stuff like that, then we would run with that. Just right now, I can't see any limits that would be placed on us from developing for the browser.
All right, next question. Team members' favorite mains in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'll go ahead and repeat mine. I like using Pikachu and Marth, and that's about it. Because I mean, I played like a little bit, but that's it. Owen, you said yours is Link.
It's Link. I mean, if you're not playing with Link, then you're wrong, and that's it. It's Link.
Is there a Chainlink connection with that? No. Is this why? Elijah, what's yours?
Captain Falcon.
Let's see. When can we expect some of the unique staking rewards / staking in general with version 2's removal of version 1's tokenomics? It'd be nice to bring back some of the more fun aspects of holding.
Yeah, I think you wrote that question while I was talking about, or just before I was talking about that stuff. So yeah, we're hoping it'll be very soon. Hopefully within the next couple of days, we'll have our first couple of liquidity incentives up and running, and on our own farm. Then obviously that's going to take a little bit longer to get up and running, but we do have some excellent collaborators that we're able to work with at the moment to make sure that we can get those incentives out to you all. I'm very similar in that I love having my tokens in liquidity as much as possible. It's a nice de-risked position to have. Of course, you do want to pull your hair out when one token goes way up in value. But yeah, getting in liquidity incentives is extremely important for us.
Question: why was liquidity split between 4 exchanges? What's the benefit of it? He is believing that bots are taking advantage of the price difference, and we wouldn't have this issue if it wasn't split between them.
So here's kind of the thing with that. Like, yes, there will always be arbitrage and stuff like that. Arbitrage would be happening regardless because we're on CEXs as well. When you're on any more than one place that you can buy and sell the token, arbitrage will happen. So we didn't see this quite as much on Uniswap because the gas fees often cancelled out the amount that you would be able to earn from arbitrage on a trade. Every now and then it did happen, and the profits from doing that actually got very high for some people. Liquidity is, like, you can assume that liquidity will be split across multiple exchanges on the majority of tokens that you will be able to jump into nowadays, particularly any that are listed on any CEX at all, and arbitrage controls it from there. Like, if you're to look at some kind of bigger tokens that are on, say, KuCoin at the moment, a lot of them don't have much, if any, liquidity on Uniswap at all. I think when Veracity went on a big run, I think it did a 4x, and I actually had a couple of tokens that I was selling from my wallet onto Uniswap, and I think the price drop was something like 20% for me just selling, a very small amount of tokens, and it was purely because there was very little liquidity on there. So what we're doing is we're trying to have actual official liquidity pools on the kind of more trusted on the more trusted AMMs that we want to jump in with. In particular, Polycat and Apeswap are two of the kind of newer ones that have turned up who we want to develop a closer relationship with, that they've both just done fantastic in the couple of months that they've been around. So the two of those got, I suppose, the lion's share of the liquidity. And then we also filled up on QuickSwap and on Sushi as well, simply because that they're popular pools and we might as well have an official source of liquidity in there, just to make sure that, somebody doesn't put in their own liquidity and then pull it out, stuff like that. So really, it's just us being able to ensure that these are there is official Dogira liquidity in here, as opposed to when it came to some of the projects that I've seen from CEXs that don't add any DEX liquidity. It tends to just be an absolute nightmare that people are pretty much just pulling out their liquidity constantly. You would get, like, if you think, like, the arbitrage we're seeing right now, there's really not a lot of profit in the bots taking advantage of stuff like that. Like, it's very, very low. If anything, they're basically evening out the liquidity between the exchanges. Arbitrage is something that happens on every platform. Like, even when you're looking at currency exchanges, say, I mean real life currency exchanges, not crypto ones, you will see people that have, there used to be a full-time job and sitting around looking at screens and kind of arbitraging everything. But of course, bots have kind of taken over from that one as well. Arbitrage is extremely common, and they're not really taking a heavy advantage of any price difference on it. There are minor advantages to be taken, but I would see it as really no more than a minor service fee that we're paying for having our liquidity spread out by those systems. Now, when we have our liquidity mining incentives set up, both with our partners and collaborators, and doing our own stuff via the farming system that we're setting up, we should have much heavier liquidity on. Hopefully, we'll be again looking at Apeswap and Polycat for these. So that's who we recommend to. That's who we recommend doing all trades with. So we'll kind of be targeting the two of those platforms to have more liquidity incentives on there. So it is likely that QuickSwap and Sushi, unless some users jump in and decide they want to provide liquidity on there themselves and just want to get the AMM fees from it, but we will be looking to greatly prop up the amount that we do have going through Apeswap and Polycat. Again, these are just two projects that we're really excited to work with. We want to develop a closer relationship with. So a lot of the liquidity that we're going to be incentivizing will be on those platforms. And again, because this is two platforms that we're incentivizing, you'll get a lot more concentrated liquidity on there as well. So you won't. Well, you'll still see arbitrage regardless of how much liquidity is on any exchange, but you will be able to say make larger trades at once rather than right now. If you were to make a large trade, be it buy or sell, you will affect the price very quickly and you have to do it in smaller portions to allow arbitrage bots to catch up. And at the other side of that, there's the argument of some people that say that's a good thing because nobody can, dump a bunch of tokens at once or anything like that because they'll have to wait for arbitrage to catch up unless they want to sell at a massive loss or anything like that. I don't really buy that myself, but my side of it is that we're going to be propping up the liquidity on Polycat and Apeswap greatly. So there will always be arbitrage, but when it comes to liquidity causing volatile price shifts on a large buy or sell, that one should be much more stable in the near future.
All right, next question. There's a lot of connective tissue between Dogira and SNAP, so is a stretch to expect a partnership in the future or even just some collaborations? Dogira, Chan, comics, and the SNAP ecosystem. We're always open to new partnerships, always open to new collaborations that benefit both parties. I can't speak on that, but we always do like our arts, so there's always that possibility, yeah.
Yeah, and again, the Snap developer, he really came up trumps for us when we needed to do, a massive amount of extensive contract testing. He's a really smart guy, was able to jump in and, give his time to Dogira. So we've all the time in the world for him for doing that. And yeah, we're always open to collaborations in the future. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't shut the door on it.
And we get updates on game development. Will Eoghan's work on the staking platform delay development of any new game or games?
Yeah, so I mean, the reality is there are only so many hours in the day, but this is it's a very important part of Dogira. I mean, the staking farm is what a lot of people are waiting for right now, and we're able to work with two collaborators to ensure that we're going to have liquidity incentives. So absolutely brilliant to have that coming in early and be able to kind of rely on that. But we need to get our own staking farm up and running as well. We need to provide more incentives around actual liquidity mining and being able to say give a launch pad to any say partner tokens that we may be working with in the future or our own tokens that we may be launching on there. As we said before, games that we develop and design might have their own token ecosystem on them, which is very likely. And we'd need to launch those, through our own launch pad and get them staked out on there, get people actually earning those tokens and I suppose getting into them early with their Dogira stacks. So it's very important that that system is, I suppose, as bulletproof as you can get it when it comes to crypto. Like there's a lot of farms that unfortunately either deliberately or accidentally pull the rug. And that's something that we want to ensure is not going to happen on this one. So we're taking every precaution and making sure that we have every resource available, working on that in a full-time capacity until it's signed off, audited, and up online running and everybody's using it. So yeah, the reality is there's only so many hours in the day. And because I'm primarily going to be working on that for the foreseeable, meaning a couple of weeks at most, Yeah, there will be a slight delay on the game development that I'm doing. Now, I wouldn't call that massive cause for concern. Like, we're only looking at a relatively short period of time before we get that up and running. So it's really like, I mean, a lot of the work I'm doing right now is in around prototyping and seeing how we can actually get things to work on the blockchain and in what kind of fashion we want them working in, how we can kind of connect things over from, do we need to use any kind of centralized components in it? Like one particular example I can give actually is I was looking at Splitter Steel and how we'd be able to put that fully on the blockchain. As really, it's a game that's logic is quite simple. It can go fully on the blockchain, but then there's a point of how do you hide the actions that the other player is making? Like if you were to play really any social deduction game and you had it fully on the blockchain, you're running into an issue because everything is public on the blockchain. If you're able to go in and just look at the contract, you have all the information, in which case the game is over. So then you have to look at, what level of it do we keep on the blockchain? Do we put it all on a central server and simply use the blockchain to verify the result? Or do we do it kind of 50-50 where we can have, the blockchain can be holding what's essentially encrypted versions of the actual, say, information, which, each player will have their own private key and be able to unlock so they can see their information. And then at the end of the game, the server can send up, all of the private keys used in that particular game, which we generated on a per game basis. So again, it'll become public. And then there's all the little things in it, like, what level of complexity are we actually going to put on this? I mean, what kind of development up ramp would we have? Do we even have time to put in the really complicated solutions? Because ideally, if we're doing, a quick port job, but then we'd spend 3 months thinking up this new encryption system to get working on it. And then there's obviously levels of security to come into it. If it's all on the blockchain, then you can rest assured that, if you have your audit done and it's all in Solidity, then it's going to be secure. The second you have one bit of logic that's not directly on the blockchain, it becomes very different. Like you're not auditing just a contract anymore, you're auditing a lot. Like you're looking at a back-end system which may not even be fully auditable. Like your server might have, Apache or MySQL or Postgres, stuff like that running on it. It becomes, to reuse the phrase, a whole new kettle of fish. Like it becomes a nightmare to run through it. So a lot of the work I'm doing right now is in around prototyping on that and seeing what we can kind of do within the timeframes we have. So it would be great to come in and, sell this absolutely grand design of a huge sweeping MMO, which will absolutely take over the world. But the reality is nobody wants to be promised something that will come out, in maybe 2 years. And then 2 years later, it's still 2 years away, stuff like that. So a lot of what I do is in my prototyping is seeing, how many reusable components can we get in here and what kind of designs have we kind of come up with that will fit into, reasonable timeframes. As I know I've said before that, bare seasons are great because where developers could sit down and develop without being bothered and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm aware of the fact that if there's no development and no releases for months on end or a year or anything like that, you're likely going to lose a lot of steam out of your token and it'll be very difficult to actually launch anything then. So yeah, the prototyping side of it, a lot of it has come down to, I suppose, seeing what we can do in the timeframes that we are allotted. So when it's coming to me jumping back to actual game development, I will be taking the time that I spent working on the farming systems into account for that, that we'll know that, yes, we have a new product or a platform out in our farm, but it's really time to start jumping into, the actual GameFi side of it. So yeah, this is all stuff that is kind of discussed in detail and will be taken into account. So while yes, my time has been taken off game development for the moment, for what I would state is extremely good reason, I wouldn't put it as a very direct, yes, it will delay games coming out because we will look at the amount of time that we have and see what we can do in that time period rather than, this is going to take X months and it will still take X months, stuff like that. Being agile is important in that area, as long as your agility doesn't, destroy what you're working on, stuff like that. There is a trade-off you can take in between the two of them. And I think the trick is kind of settle in on the best compromise in those areas with the time you have.
Well said. And yeah, so on that development, it's if there is going to be delay, it won't be that much. What genre will our first game be? We did a Twitter poll. Everybody, at least a lot of people, 50%, are saying they want an MMO RPG or just a regular RPG. And the one that tied in second, I believe, was just something that was mainly involving story. That was like about 26% or something. So, what do you say, Owen? What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely love the idea of having so I've always been a fan of like the older school MMOs. So when you come at, Ragnarok Online and Legend of Mirrors, stuff like that. And yeah, it would be absolutely amazing fun to have a Dogira level, RPG where you're actually able to like an MMO RPG where you can actually run around and see other, players in it and display your NFTs and stuff like that. It might be one of the more ambitious things we'd be looking at. So not something we would fit in a very short amount of time, but in general RPG senses, yeah, so there was one that launched, I think it was Crypto Blades, which was kind of the RPG battle simulator stuff like that, or strategy. It kind of a mishmash across them, and that did extremely well. It's a lot of the games that I kind of enjoy playing in the browser are actually stuff like that, where there's, you can put a decent bit of thought into what you're doing. You have obviously, the look factors in it and stuff like that. And there's a lot that you can do with that kind of system, which would be very much kind of contained on the blockchain. I believe Crypto Blades was 100% blockchain based. Now, a lot of it was done around, the NFT weapon systems and just matching elementals and stuff like that. But it did put in it put down the bare bone basis and was extremely successful in kind of solidifying that, pun not intended. But they did extremely well in kind of showing that, that genre does work well on it. And when you expand out the formula that they worked on with that one and start including in, additional items or travel and, text dialogue, stuff like that onto it, you start actually forming the basis for an RPG at that stage. So it's definitely something that, I would not rule out. It's a lot of it does, of course, come down to, levels of complexity and what we can do with, well, I wouldn't put it very directly down to what we can do in the time we have. Like, yes, we're not going to be making Knights of the Old Republic. That's kind of a given. But when it comes to getting an RPG release out or a game with RPG elements in it, stuff like that, yeah, it's a very interesting one to sit back and kind of think on. That there's a lot you can do in that general genre, especially when you're talking, the more older school stuff of turn-based battles and stuff like that, which lends itself to crypto extremely well. In that, real-time combat like an ARPG and stuff like that, a little bit more difficult to put directly on the blockchain as there's just a lot of motion and movement in it. But yeah, turn-based when it's just actions and stuff like that, and very easily extendable with kind of, either new NFTs would act as say mobs and stuff like that. And I'm nearly just tangenting now about how I would build out one of them, but it's stuff that we've kind of sat down and had a talk through before. But yeah, RPGs are definitely, I think, a general genre that lends themselves extremely well into crypto.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then people were even talking about possibly having like linear RPGs as one as well. So he's saying not only that, but turn-based. So like something like Fire Emblem, and I was thinking Legend of Dragoon or like Final Fantasy VII, like things that this is the main storyline. Yeah, no, you won't be able to do side quests and everything, but I think it's cool, turn-based.
Absolutely.
And everything.
Again, the scope of Final Fantasy VII may be a little bit too big to bite off right
now. as a general concept, storyline-wise and all that other stuff, no. Yeah, we're releasing a proof of concept, and then we can go into ambitions.
Yeah.
I think Kojima.
Yeah, absolutely. And you again touched on one of my favorite games as well, Fire Emblem. Like that again is another type of like the logic in that would lend itself really well to the blockchain as well. So yeah, I think RPGs are on everybody's minds right now because we've seen brilliant RPG projects come out as they're nearly like if there's a genre that was ever built for blockchain, I think it's coming down to RPG and maybe strategy and stuff like that. Like anything that can kind of be more turn-based is built for blockchain in its current format anyway. And especially when we're on Polygon, in that, like, I mean, if you're doing a contract interaction on every single move, it would still probably not even cost you 1 or 2 cents to play through an entire game. Like, we're looking at extremely quick transaction times and extremely low gas fees. So, yeah, it's definitely, I think, a genre that lends itself incredibly well to crypto right now.
Assuming the current rate of productivity with our current development team, how long till we can expect to see our first real utilization of Dogira? I mean, you could technically say that the staking and all the stuff we're doing around that is the first utilization, but I'm assuming that you mean the proof of concept or some type of game. Owen, do we have any timeline?
Yeah, so yeah, you're right in what you're kind of saying of like it's kind of what are you defining as, the actual utility on it. So when it comes to the actual incentivized liquidity mining, if you did count that, then we're looking at a couple of days in that one. We'll have our own farm then, which, is a little bit further out, but hopefully, it won't be too far out. We'll hopefully get that launched pretty soon, and that will kind of expand on that. When you're looking at the other things you spoke about in our white paper, be it either proof of concept gaming or say we talked about, getting a Reddit tip bot up and running, stuff like that, will be a little bit longer, as right now all of the energies are kind of being focused on getting the actual farm up and running, making sure that the token is mapped out, and collaborating with kind of third parties that we want to develop a bit of a closer relationship with as well, and seeing where we can actually kind of bounce off each other on that stuff, how we can help each other out, that kind of stuff. I would hope though that we will be seeing utility outside of the actual farming and staking side of it in the very near future though.
Right. Awesome. Perfect. So again, to reiterate, how soon? It's a couple of days. Let's see. We're getting a lot of people expressing concern that they didn't get their accumulated tokens from buy and sell tax of V1. Could we address this once and for all? To make it very short and in a summary, we took the snapshot, halted trading very shortly after. That's correct, Owen, in that order?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we went ahead and started working on airdropping as well as deploying the V2 contract. Someone either left liquidity and it was like 0.1 ETH, or they added liquidity.
I think he's talking about, so some people are stating that they had taxes built up over a long time before.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Because I thought they were talking about like, the accumulation, the reflections from after we took the snapshot.
Yeah, so after we took the snapshot, there was a decent bit of movement that actually happened on the network, one being our liquidity, and that would have sent off a couple of reflections on it. So if it's a couple of Dogira that you picked up, like, and I'm talking about, 10 or 20, depending on the stack that you have, but a small percentage of it, that is likely due to network traffic that happened after the snapshot was taken. We did have one or two people claim that they were missing large amounts of Dogira. Now, so far in checking all of those, some of them actually purchased Dogira like from the market, like literally 12 hours after the snapshot was taken, when the price was tanked down to zero, and wanted to get a direct transfer over. So far I don't believe we've had anybody who say had a large amount of tokens that didn't get transferred through. But if you do believe that you're missing a large amount of tax tokens that you would have had from before we took the snapshot, please do get in touch in our Discord channel or on our Telegram. We'll be able to look into them on an individual basis if that happens, because I do know that reflections sometimes do not get reflected in the actual token count itself. That sometimes you need to actually do a transfer to or from an account before it gets updated fully. So if we do find that is the case on any of them, we'll be able to deal with them on an individual level. But right now we're not seeing any, or I don't believe we've seen any so far, which have been any greater than what would have happened for when we're, say, pulling liquidity, like very small reflections. So, but definitely correct us if we're wrong on that. Just reach out to any of the mods that are on our Discord or our Telegram. If you're able to provide, say, your Etherscan link and be able to show us, how much was on there, and obviously you don't have a purchase put in 10 minutes beforehand or anything like that. But if you're able to even pick up, say, the amount of purchases that you made on there and kind of make it easier for us to digest down, like, how much is actually owed in this account. But on top of that as well, we didn't have a lot of volume on Dogira really in the last couple of months on Ethereum, which kind of kept, like, people were used to seeing not many reflections coming in. And all of a sudden, when liquidity was pulled, and some people, like we're seeing right now, as Skylar, I think, was about to touch on, there was like 0.01 Ethereum put into the liquidity pool, and somebody tried to like airdrop people to see if they'll go and buy the tokens so they could pull liquidity out of it themselves, stuff like that. Like, this stuff is all causing reflections on it that we would not have seen when we're actually on the network itself. So yeah, you could be getting a lot of reflections at the moment, but would not have been there at the time of the snapshot. But again, feel free to reach out to one of the moderators or on our Discord or Telegram if you believe that you're missing any tokens.
And just to have it, like Quint was saying, once and for all, you were talking about something prior about someone having tokens and then them not receiving reflections, or them not receiving the right amount for that amount of time. So like they have a certain amount, and then for like X amount of months it didn't increase, or etc.
Oh, yeah. So, well, it should have increased. Like, if there was a problem with, if there's a problem with reflections being received in general, like, really, it should have been. That's something that you should really mention much sooner than now. But, like, this is a smart contract. If one person was not receiving reflections, then nobody should be receiving reflections on it. I know that I was still receiving reflections on Dogira during that time. Now, unless for whatever reason I think there's a small couple of accounts that I think they won the tax-free wallets way back in March, February, whenever it was launched. That was one of the incentives that you could win a tax-free wallet where you didn't have all it was only like or you didn't have to put on the slippage when you were selling, but you also did not receive any reflections, stuff like that. But outside of that one, over the last couple of months, volume has been incredibly low to a point where you would not receive many reflections, but you would be receiving some of them. But after liquidity was pulled and then some people were airdropping and stuff like that, the reflections could well be building up now, all right. But if there is a case of anybody who thinks they went a long time without receiving any reflections, I mean, do get in touch with us. But unless you had one of the wallets that got that tax-free status back before I even joined Dogira, it wouldn't really be possible for it to happen because it's a smart contract. It would happen to everybody or happen to nobody.
Copy. Let's go to the next one here. Is there an easy way to go at the moment to swap ERC20 or BNB to MATIC to Polygon since Binance Polygon suspended at the moment? So we do have that video up. It is a little bit gas intensive, so you do have to buy on Uniswap and connect to MetaMask to the Polygon network, etc. Video explains it all. As for I do remember there's faucets, correct? That will be able to get you some MATIC even if it's a little bit.
Yeah, if you were holding any Dogira V1, we would have airdropped you. It doesn't matter how much Dogira you held, we airdropped everybody one MATIC. So you should have enough on there for any transactions that you want to do. But I'm assuming you're trying to get on a couple of MATIC and stuff like that. So there is a BNB to MATIC. I believe you can actually do it through Apeswap. Because I know you can send their banana token through Polygon and onto BSC. So there is one on there. On the Ethereum network, there is the actual Polygon bridge, but again, it's quite gas intensive. I think I pulled over some tonight from the liquidity pool locker that we have, and I think I had to pay about $100 in gas on it, which is pretty high. There are other exchanges as well. I believe KuCoin allows you to off ramp directly onto Polygon, and if I'm correct, our CEX partners are also able to off ramp onto Polygon now. But do your due diligence on those. I'm not 100% sure on it yet.
Yes, you should be able to, but yeah, definitely check with them just to be, like triple, quadruple check because you're sending money to a different network, and if that happens, you would end up sending it to a different network. Let's see, what is Owen's favorite yogurt?
Be really boring. And again, this might be Apeswap putting it in my mind. I really like banana yogurt and vanilla, like old fashioned. Yeah, I'm very boring when it comes to yogurts. It'll be very regular yogurt. Banana yogurt's always nice, but sorry, I'm very boring when it comes to yogurt. I've no exotic yogurts that I can point out to you.
What about you, Elijah? What's your favorite yogurt?
I really like honey Noosa.
What's Noosa?
Noosa is just a yogurt brand.
Oh, okay.
We have around here, and I like honey. So also kind of boring, but banana's kind of disappointing.
He was expecting you to say like Lucky Charm flavor or freaking.
That's just sugar flavor. I hate Lucky Charms. Every time I go to America, someone's like, "Oh, I got you some Lucky Charms." Like, I don't want your sugar. It's horrible.
Yeah, we have sugar in everything. It's awful.
Are the two new Unity developers close to wrapping up on their current project? I can't speak about that. But when we do have them on the team, we will update you guys and we will update it on the website. It's not going to be a very long time though. Bans on community members creating Dogira related NFTs to sell for personal profit. Honestly, I don't have a problem as long as they're not saying that it's officially endorsed by Dogira unless we officially endorse it. Anybody can make anything they want, freedom of expression. I mean, obviously, I would ask you very kindly to make it look good. But other than that, yeah, I mean that's about it. Unless you're thinking otherwise, Owen.
No, I'm the exact same. Make whatever you want. Just yeah, don't say it's officially endorsed by us, but if you do make something cool and you might want to get it officially endorsed by us, just give us a shout. Like there are things that we've looked at before that, we have actually put up on our own Rarible, and like we have obviously, the verified account on there, or well, it's verified under RootPew right now, but if there is something that you would ever want to kind of put out that you might want to get an official stamp on, give us a shout. Again, the worst we could say is no, and outside of that, as long as you're not stating that it's official Dogira stuff, then go wild.
And last question, what were the primary incentives for selecting Apeswap and Polycat as the main Polygon dexes?
Yeah, there are two projects that, when I personally at least have followed for quite a while now, massive fan of the stuff that they've done so far to date, and they've both had they both had really good growth stages as well. Like I think Apeswap now is kind of one of the biggest DEXs. That's kind of primarily running on BSC at the moment, but they have a lot of great Polygon tokens as well. Polycat, I think, are really kind of trend setting in a lot of the stuff that they did. Like vaults, like the auto compounding vaults were absolutely fantastic. And I mean, it's like a lot of the stuff they've done have kind of been cutting edge on it. And they're one of the newest DEXs that are out at the moment, one of the newest AMMs that are up and running. I think one thing that I absolutely love in particular is the design that they put onto the actual website. I mean, it's one of the most user-friendly and intuitive designs that I've seen an AMM actually have. And that's saying a lot when, let's just be very blunt about it, it can be very difficult to make an AMM actually look good. I mean, I think I avoided using PancakeSwap for the first couple of weeks when it came out because I just hated the look of it. It looked like something that was about to rob me, that kind of thing. I think Polycat have done brilliant in actually making it much more intuitive. They have really good tokenomics on it when it both comes to their. They have a mintable token and they have a non-mintable token, and the AMM swaps actually directly buy and burn up tokens off the market from it. They they have good fee structures as well on top of that, both for buyers, sellers, traders, etc., and liquidity providers. And then they have their own yield farming on top of it as well. They also have been pretty active in actually working with other communities as well. Some of them which have kind of been up and coming in actual DeFi and stuff like that. I mean, I think it could be really put to their merit in that they have right now, I think, about 50 million in total value locked on there. So I think the potential for Polycat right now is absolutely incredible. And Apeswap, I mean, they're already rocking it up at the top. So I think they're two brilliant DEXs that we have a chance to work very closely with. And I think that it's the best thing for Dogira and for the team that we currently have, and for our community to be able to work with both of those partners. Like it's fantastic to speak with them.
Well said. Well said. All right.
Perfect. Right. Well, next time we'll be back at our usual time and days on Fridays at 9 p.m. UTC every 2 weeks. Yeah, I know we've gotten a lot done over the last week or so. We still have a lot more still to come. And we're looking forward to getting the actual liquidity incentives out there, get a little bit more utility added onto the token, get the website revamp underway. And yeah, there's a lot more kind of exciting stuff that we're really looking forward to sharing with you all in the near future. And in the meantime, yeah, trade safe, enjoy exploring on the Polygon network. Check out Apeswap and Polycat if you've not already, and check out some of the partners that they've worked with in the past before too. Like they've worked with some really fantastic tokens that we've seen, and I think again, we're putting our liquidity on there, the lion's share of it with them, because we think that they've kind of overall been a fantastic service to the projects that have kind of added liquidity on there, reached out to the teams, stuff like that. And yeah, we hope to have more news on all this stuff soon as well, on what kind of stuff we'd love to do together in the future.
Thanks for attending, guys.
Cool. Thanks, man. All. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.